Our political editor Andrew Clennell, as he is always with me live in the studio. And let's get to the budget, the press club address today, the traditional address for the Treasurer, and a fair bit of focus on something that wasn't actually in the budget, that being the stage 3 tax cuts.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, what government have you known that's about to deliver $70 billion of tax cuts over the forward estimates and doesn't want to advertise it, doesn't want to put a line of it in the budget? I mean, you are kidding. It is a bizarre situation. And I asked Jim Chalmers this question about the fact he'd only targeted people for relief on welfare. My thinking behind this is, if you're not on family tax benefit part A or B, which I think cops out at 156 grand for a household, that's 2 income earners and their kids or whatever, you don't get anything. You don't get 500 off your power bill. You get nothing. People on JobSeeker get a rise, single parent pension, etc., or some people on that. And isn't that pretty hard to sell to middle Australia? So you could have a teacher and a police officer, 80 grand each. They get nothing from this budget. Now, the easy answer for this, Kieran, if it was the government's own tax cuts, not Scott Morrison's, would be, well, they get a tax cut next year when inflation's down.
Yeah.
But you don't hear that from Jim Chalmers. He goes on about wages, and then he went for some class war attack on Angus Taylor. Fair enough, that's his right. But I found it puzzling that they just wouldn't even have a line on stage 3 tax cuts in the budget. I know there's a lot of ABC journalists who've been attacking them non-stop about this and saying they should scrap them. And I wonder if they feel the pressure from them and from their base, to be perfectly, brutally honest. Here's my exchange with the Treasurer this afternoon. What do you say to those working full-time about why those on the dole get relief but they don't? And if the answer is stage 3 tax cuts next year, why were you seemingly too ashamed of them to mention them in the budget?
I understand that people will ask what's in the budget for Middle Australia, and I'm so proud to get that question and pleased to get that question, because a key part of getting the wages moving again in this country after a decade of stagnation is about Middle Australia. The cheaper early childhood education, which some of you have given us stick for being too generous to Middle Australia, that will be a game changer for working parents. And I think that our country is better, frankly, than the kind of downward envy that we hear about from time to time from people like Angus Taylor.
So we got a round of applause for that. Not a line in the budget about the stage 3 tax cuts. The cost of them over 10 years was detailed in the October budget by this government. But what's really puzzling about this, Kieran, is that just 2 weeks ago in a television interview, the Finance Minister, Katie Gallagher, said there would be a line about the tax cuts in the budget.
What's the cost of the stage 3 tax cuts over the next 4 years?
Well, those will be updated in the budget, but, you know, they're... I can't recall what they are across the forward estimates,
well, it was
but
nearly
it
was nearly $41 billion, according to the Treasurer, in October, so it's presumably more than that now.
Well, they'll be updated in the budget, David.
So he was asked at the lock-up, the Treasurer, he said it's now $69 billion, not $41 billion over the forward estimates, but not a line about that relief coming in a year. There's suspicion out of that the government will tweak them, will change them. They could never dump them. Well, not unless they wanted the coalition to be back in office. I think they're so significant to so many people, particularly when there's been a cost of living crunch. But they have to hope inflation decreases to their forecast in order that these tax cuts don't contribute to an inflation problem. The PM and Treasurer, forced by questions really this morning, to end up defending the policy, even though they didn't want to mention it last night.
Is the default that unless something changes, they're in the budget next year, unless there's a change in economic circumstances?
I can't give a clearer answer than we haven't changed our position. We gave no consideration to that. What the measures that we are interested in, we put into last night's budget.
Okay. All right, and on the fairness of it, I know you've been saying this morning that it doesn't just go to the top end of town. Are you going to mount a fairness argument on stage 3 that it does help lower income earners as well?
Tom, that was a debate that was happening in 2018. What I'm interested in is the budget that we handed down last night.
will you, regardless of any economic situation, reassess these tax cuts and every element of them?
No, I think as you describe it, it's our default position, because we haven't changed our view on that.